Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So I'm going to show you a video that took place on MSNBC. Chuck Todd, Mr. Oblivious, is having a conversation with a reporter. Listen to what the reporter is talking about, and let's have a conversation with it afterwards. Let's see.
Reporter Ken Delaney, part of the team that broke this news. So Ken, again, separate out for us. We have the Internet Research Agency. There's the social media disruption campaign, but that did not include WikiLeaks, the Podesta, and DNC hacks. What this is about is just that, Podesta and the DNC hacks.
That's exactly right, Chuck. We're told that Special Counsel Robert Mueller is moving toward an indictment or multiple indictments that would serve the same purpose as that document filed last month. Essentially, as you recall, that document left out the hacks of the DNC, the leaking operation, which played a significant role in the election, was a big part of the Russian meddling. So these new charges would tell the story of how that happened and name Russians who were involved, allegedly, and they would...
You know, the funny part about it, initially he's assertive and he knows exactly, he says, well, the Russians were involved in it. We had WikiLeaks, et cetera, and he's using all those things within the context of one another. And then he says, allegedly. I don't really know what the fuck I'm talking about. Allegedly. This guy's, his name is Ken Delaney. Ken Delaney is on mainstream media. He used to be a reporter. He's looking into the camera and he's giving you information talking about the investigation with Trump, Russia, Mueller, et cetera, et cetera. That same person who's now used as a reporter, who's relaying information to the public itself, is also a CIA asset. That person associates themselves with the CIA and was shown to get their information validated by the CIA, meaning the CIA would check over what they will put out before they actually put that information out, and putting the best foot forward of that particular agency. Fuck truth and reality. Let's just put out propaganda. This is The Intercept. This is a great piece by The Intercept. The CIA's mop-up man, LA Times reporter, cleared stories with the agency before publication. A prominent national security reporter for the Los Angeles Times routinely submitted drafts and detailed summaries of his stories to the CIA press handlers prior to publication, according to the documents obtained by The Intercept. Email exchanges between CIA public affairs officers and Ken Delaney, the gentleman that you just saw looking into the camera, that MSNBC brought on to give you information, that same guy, a now Associated Press intelligence reporter and also reporter on MSNBC, who previously covered the CIA for the Times, show that Delaney enjoyed a closely collaborative relationship with the agency, explicitly promising positive news coverage and sometimes sending the press office entire story drafts for review prior to the publication. In at least one instance, the CIA reaction appears to have led to significant changes in the story that was eventually published in the Times. I'm working on a story about congressional oversight of drone strikes that can present a good opportunity for you guys, Delaney wrote in the email to the CIA press office, explaining that what he intended to report would be reassuring the public about the CIA drone strikes. That's amazing. In another, after a series of back-and-forth emails with a pending story on CIA operations in Yemen, he sent a full draft of an unpublished report along with the subject line, "Does this look better?" In another, he directly asked the flack, "You wouldn't put out disinformation on this, would you?" Delaney's emails were included in hundreds of pages of documents that the CIA turned over in response to 2 FOIA requests seeking records on the agency's interactions with reporters. They include email exchanges with reporters from the Associated Press, Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and other outlets. In addition to Delaney's deferential relationship with the CIA press handlers, the documents show that the agency regularly invited journalists to its McLean, Virginia headquarters for briefings and other events. The point that I'm getting at here is MSNBC, Chuck Todd, doesn't tell you that. Like, when this guy is looking into the camera and this guy is giving you information, they don't tell you that this guy used to get his stories fleshed out by the CIA and get those stories approved by the CIA before he's relaying those stories. How are you going to have an adversarial press? And how can you depend on the press to give you the straight dope about what's taking place if that press has cozy relationship with the same power that it's supposed to be reporting on? I mean, come on. MSNBC is literally at this point turning into, for all intents and purposes, a propaganda outlet. Chuck Todd has this man on, and this man has a record of being obsequious to the power structures that him as the press is supposed to philosophically hold accountable. Talk about manufacturing consent. This guy's out there talking about drone strikes, saying he's given the best case for drone strikes. Now that you know that this is who this person is, meaning that's his track record, that's what he's been caught doing. Now that you know that he's obsequious to the power structure that he himself is supposed to be monitoring and keeping track on for the American public. Now that you know that, does it give any context to any other story that this guy recounts? Meaning, if he's looking into the camera and he's giving you information, don't you at the very least have to ask yourself, is this information being checked or approved or maneuvered or manipulated in some way by something other than him? Because ultimately, that is what was taking place. If you're going to have a reporter that is telling the CIA that they're going to make the drone program look relatively decent to the American public, that person is a gross fucking liar. And not just a gross fucking liar. That person is on MSNBC. MSNBC felt the need to employ that gross fucking liar that is completely obsequious to the military establishment. It's amazing that they would hire somebody who was a look, it's not that I'm necessarily shocked that the CIA would try to influence these opinions. Fair enough. But the MSNBC hired this guy. They put this guy on the airwaves, and this guy is on the airwaves relaying information to the American public, and the American public is looking at this guy as if what he's saying is honest, what he's saying is purely his opinion, and what he's saying has not necessarily been massaged by something else. This is a propaganda outlet, and when you have a situation where both sides have a dog in the hunt, both sides have this kind of incentive to shape reality in a way that makes them look best and makes them look more favorable. And look, to some degree, everyone does. Fair enough. But I'm saying in this very specific case, this person has been caught red-handed, altering, tweaking, massaging stories at the behest of the CIA. And it is immensely problematic that that person is now on the airwaves relaying information to the American public as if the information that he's relaying is the news as opposed to some level of propaganda. Operation Mockingbird was the military or the CIA operation that sought to influence America's public opinion, meaning news, media, educators, celebs, whatever. The goal was, how can we move the crowd? Can we influence what the public thinks? Because the United States population, it's not like you're in some kind of autocratic country. There are aspects of this country that, yeah, is somewhat of a prison state or militaristic state or police state. That's true. But it's not the same thing where there aren't certain press freedoms or there aren't things that people can't say, if that makes sense. You've had pressure put upon you with the whole Russian narrative stuff. But that pressure is somewhat different when that pressure is direct, when the state itself is putting you in prison because you had a certain belief that they don't necessarily like you having. So you come up with a different issue or a different problem. How do you massage the public to get the public to not go into places that you don't want them to go while at the same time going into other places that you definitely want them to go? How do you maneuver the public in a way to the best interest of the government, not necessarily to the best interest of that public itself? And that's when you get into this idea of manufacturing consent that Noam Chomsky came up with. It's like the manipulation of the public using media and propaganda in order to get a certain amount of thought processes in the public. For example, something takes place. You never really see the perspective in the media that says, maybe we shouldn't be bombing those countries. Maybe we shouldn't be in those countries. Maybe us dropping bombs in this country creates terrorists in this other country. Those questions, those things aren't necessarily put up in a way that those things are debated and talked about. For all intents and purposes, military activity on the news is considered to be this kind of the patriotic thing. It's the thing that the United States government has to do. If the United States government is doing it, we may be incompetent, we may be fuck-ups, but ultimately they're doing it for the right reasons. There's a certain amount of propaganda built into the way the media apparatus is set up and structured. That's what I'm getting at. So the questions dealing with the military is not necessarily, those don't come up in that way. When Donald Trump, they call Donald Trump everything but a child of God. When Donald Trump dropped that bomb in Syria, I remember the first time he dropped the bomb in Syria, the media fell in line. One after the next, fell in line. This is the first time he seems presidential. I mean, it was an illegal missile strike, but they don't call it such. They don't even question such. Nobody is at our gates. There are no barbarians at our door. They still don't question it. They still go along with it, and they still support it regardless. That's a little weird. That's a little strange. An adversarial press would ask questions about those things. An adversarial press wouldn't allow the government to just say whatever and skate on the things that they're saying. They would try to hold them accountable in what they're saying, particularly when you're getting into issues of war and peace. If people are being killed, it ups the gravity of whatever they're talking about that much more. You would hope that you had a press to A, protect your rights, at least from the standpoint of giving you access to information where you yourself can see what's going on in a certain amount of transparent way. And B, not be obsequious to the power structure itself. And right now what we see is these people give up, essentially they become scripts or transcriptionists. They're essentially stenographers, I think is the way that people call them. It's not adversarial. It's not getting to the bottom of what's taking place. It's not getting at the stuff that they don't want you to know. No, they create these cozy relationships and they relay the information that the information comes out. Here's a news flash. If they're relaying information to you, they're giving you that information for a particular reason. And I guarantee you it's not going to be the information that they don't want you to know. The only information that you would ever get in those situations is what they want you to know and what they want to get out. You're a stenographer. And you're a stenographer of the worst type because you don't tell people that you're stenographers. So MSNBC has a hack on that used to work for the CIA. And at that point, there's no way to know what that's coming out of his mouth is actually legit and what is just propaganda that these guys are putting out. So good to know. This guy was an apologist for the drone program, or at the very least was talking about being an apologist for the drone program. Put it in perspective. The liberal news network, MSNBC. I will put this at the bottom. All right, guys. If you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks, guys.